Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to my next episode of Personal Brand Mechanics Interview. My name is Peter Sterlacci, founder of Believe, Become, Be Your Brand. And thanks for tuning in. You may know that my motivation for doing this series is due to people who I've met in my career and life who I consider to be mechanics of personal branding. And really what I mean by that, these are folks who have tips and techniques and strategies that I feel help us to build, maintain, and even repair our personal brands. And so today I'm really excited to have Garr Reynolds with us. Garr and I go back to, I guess in the early 90s when we were working in Japan doing similar things. And then our paths crossed again in probably was 2000 in Silicon Valley when you were at Apple.
Hmm.
And then I was at San Jose State. And then four years ago, I came back to Japan for my second time around. And somebody passed this book along to me called Presentation Zen. And I saw Garr Reynolds' name on it. And I thought, wow, interesting. I had lost track with you for a couple of years. And here you were now writing this book. So thanks for joining us for today's interview, Garr.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let me just jump right into the questions. And of course, people identify your brand as the Presentation Zen guy. And I'm just curious, did you say to yourself one day I was going to write this book that was going to change the world of presentations and be known as this presentation guru? Really, what was your motivation behind all this?
No, actually, I was talking about brand you and branding in 2000 or in the late 90s. And one of the things you have to have, of course, is a website. And so when I left Apple and came back to Japan, this is around 2003, just before I came back to Japan, I had a few months off. So I built my own website, garreynolds.com, using, frames. It's very old-fashioned and very static, but at least I got the website up. And then the thing is, you have to update it, right? And it's hard to update a website. And if you don't update it, though, nobody comes. But blogging hadn't really been invented yet, or it hadn't become famous. And then around 2004, this thing blogging pops up, and I started my blog in 2005, and I called it Presentation Zen, because Zen in the Western world, you know how Zen is. It means lots of different things.
Right.
Simplicity, a kind of perfection, right? It's hard to explain, but in English when we mean, there's a certain Zen to that. So it wasn't a gimmick. It's just a website where I could talk about presentation. It's one of my passions, and design and education and some things related to that. But it was great because you could update it so easily, and the barriers have been removed. So this is around 2005. I just started blogging, but not blogging like this is what I had for lunch and that kind of thing. But everything should be relevant and useful. And I would update it a couple times a week. That was my pace. Some people like Seth Godin do every day or twice a day, but I have to do a little bit more research on mine, and I'm lazy as well, so it takes time to do things. Then after a couple of years, I started getting after a couple of months, I started getting more and more followers. Then after a couple of years, publishers would contact me because the material is already out there.
Sure.
The old way to write a book is, make a proposal and hopefully, you can sell it. And the new way is if you have a good blog and you're showing your content, you might have publishers come to you. So that's what happened. And I had 3 or 4 that showed interest. And again, because I'm lazy, it took a long time to actually write. Still, I had to write a proposal, but they showed great interest. And then Pearson or Peachpit was my first choice. I love their books. They had a lot of great design books and a lot of Apple books. And so, we started a relationship, and we basically took the ideas and the material from the blog for many, many years, and then put that into the Presentation Zen book. Because people still, a blog it's hard to find everything over the years. You can search, but people still like to have a book. So I didn't know if it would sell, but at least it could be my business card.
Sure.
And then, it turns into this huge seller, and then other books after that. And still more books in the work. But I didn't start out to write books. That was not the intention. The spirit of it is to give content away, and I give everything away. Nothing's for sale on the website, except my books. There's links to my books now, so that's for sale.
Right.
But other than that, there's no password. I just give everything away.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, as you said, that whole blogging culture. And nowadays, what was it? The recent statistics on Technorati said there's like over 50 million blogs right now. It seems like everybody's got a blog.
Right, but most of those are kind of like cemeteries, right? Because it's easy to start a blog, but it's kind of with Twitter accounts. I don't know how many millions of Twitter accounts, but most of them Yeah, you have an account, but
Yeah, you
is it
don't really use
updated?
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's still very hard. So there's still blogging is great, and the social media is great. It does lower the barriers and lets people in,
Hmm.
but it's still not. You still have to have good content, and you still
Sure.
have to make an effort. So
Right.
it's still fair in that sense, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely,
it's
definitely.
not no one gets something for nothing, but it does allow other people in that couldn't get in before.
Well, I mean, definitely the books you've written have definitely have had a huge impact. And I mean, even I remember, as I said, when I picked up your book when I came back a few years ago, and I read through it, I'm like, gosh, there's some really incredible things here. It's certainly changed the way that I present for sure. But like, I wanted to ask you, how does being a good presenter help someone to promote their personal brand?
Well, absolutely. I mean that. In fact, that's kind of my story. When we first met, wasn't the early '90s. I'm not that old, but it was in the '90s.
Right.
And in the late '90s, I mean, I knew about Guy Kawasaki, and then we became friends later. But he always said, give it away.
Mm,
The more you, actually, he's got a great chestnut that goes, eat like a bird and poop like an elephant.
right.
You heard that one? So the
Yes.
idea is to consume knowledge, go, just learn, go to conferences, do whatever, read lots of books, and then give that information away,
Mm,
share it. And presentation was the way that I did that.
mm,
I had no intention of making money doing presentations. I never got paid for making presentations. I would just volunteer to do it, at like Rotary in Japan. But these are like Rotary clubs, the equivalent of Rotary clubs or business clubs, universities.
right.
Yeah, and the more you do that, the better you get at presenting, then your network grows.
Mm,
But the spirit of it is contribution. I want to share the stuff. I have
yeah.
nothing to sell. And the ironic thing is that if you do that, you get back much more in return.
Sure, sure, sure.
Eventually, you get money in return, but that wasn't, and that's great, and that it becomes a business. But right away, you get friends, you get great contacts. Um, there's a good feeling about it, but
Yeah.
it grows your network or grows your community. So
Mm,
I highly recommend, even if you're shy or introverted, and I'm basically shy. I mean, I present a lot now, and I started doing that, but I'd rather just stay at home in my pajamas as I'm doing now.
yes.
I'm basically lazy. Uh, but the benefits were just so great from going out there and doing that. And plus, I also have to bring in Apple because I was so, I've been a Mac geek my whole life, and they
Mm,
just made designing visual presentations. And a long time ago, it was PowerPoint for the Mac, but
mm,
and then using Photoshop and other things. And you could just do things that in those days the PCs really couldn't do,
mm,
video and multimedia and stuff. And it
right.
was fun, and it was a very creative thing to do.
Sure.
So this is like 12, 13 years ago.
Right. Yeah,
Because the only
definitely.
kind of presentations back then, if you used visuals equaled, bullet points and boredom, and people endured that. So when they saw something different, it really got people's
Yeah,
attention.
definitely.
But no, it's fun though. It still is fun, but that's what kind of got me interested. So I have to say thank you to the Steves for
Yes.
inventing Apple.
Definitely, definitely. Well, as I said, you are branded worldwide as Mr. Presentation Zen, but I wanted to ask you, what do you see as brand Garr? I mean, how do you define your brand or your unique promise of value?
Yeah, that's a hard one because it's very easy to talk about presentation Zen and what that means because it's sort of a meme and it's a movement.
Right.
Then you ask me, what is my brand? And, I understand that's why I'm not in the business of doing branding seminars and writing branding books. Because you can think something, but you have to ask other people, of course, to see
Right.
if, I could say, for example, my brand is patience and loving kindness.
Right.
And then you ask other people and they go, what? That guy, he's an idiot. I'm not talking about myself. I'm just saying hypothetically. So I had to ask my wife, and she knows the real. I don't say the real me. I mean, there isn't a real me and a fake me, but
Sure.
the brand is the brand you want to project. I mean, there's the Hilton brand, which is a great brand, but you don't see behind the curtain.
Hmm.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
What is Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola is a great brand, but they're not going to tell you the formula,
Sure.
or that there's sugar, or that there's salt and caffeine in it, which makes you thirsty. So it's that's not their brand. Their brand is something else. But I don't mean that it's fake. So I had to ask my wife though.
Hmm.
So she would say the real person inside the house is sometimes hectic, unorganized. But I asked her, and she said honestly, and I have to agree with it, is
Hmm.
childlike, to be a child forever, to share information, to share knowledge, and to inspire others to look inside themselves to be, I sound like the U.S. Army, to be all that they
To
can
be
be,
all they can
but
be.
to improve. And so you can't, I mean, you can't say, well, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm inspiring.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is to inspire others to improve.
Sure. Sure.
That's very rewarding to me.
Yeah. Well, I think, as you said, I mean, that's really the thing. And when we think about branding, it is, you have to ask others what they think. It's that, as I've always said, it's your brand is held in the hearts and minds of people around you. So it is a hard question to answer, but it's really interesting when you get that feedback from other people. And then you can ask yourself, well, do you agree with it? I mean, and it sounds like you agree with, you resonate with what your wife was saying.
Well, and my wife is biased, of course. So
Of course.
I get a lot of emails, and the theme is always, you inspired me to change. I
Right.
quit my job. I started this. I'm studying this. I've improved my presentation, and
Right.
that got me this job. So, yeah, there seems to be a common theme. Of course, you get haters. I mean, the more you become known, when you're mediocre, or when you suck, if I may use the vernacular, then you have enemies. People hate you.
Right.
And then when you improve and you become mediocre or average, and then nobody hates you.
Mm. True. True.
But no one loves you either.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But then if you become a little bit known for something, then, I mean, it's a small percentage, it's less than 1%, but you get that. And this is important to branding, because as you become a brand, for your listeners out there, you might get people who push back, or,
Right.
who say negative things, but, you just, the brand is inside you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Starbucks doesn't change, or Nike doesn't change.
Right.
Right. The brand, or Madonna, or Peter.
Right. Exactly.
It
Or
comes.
Garr.
It comes. Inside.
Yeah. Totally.
But you're absolutely right. It's not what you say, though. It's who was it? Marty Neumeyer, who has his branding books, Brand Gap, and so on. But he says, it's not what you say. It's what others say.
Absolutely.
It's not what Apple says about themselves.
Sure.
It's what others says about Apple. And so they're getting a little bit, now that they're at the top, because they were always the underdogs.
Right.
Forever. That's why it was a great brand that many of us identified with, because we thought they were better. We thought, of course, it's freedom of choice, but we felt it was better. But it was great being in the minority.
Sure.
And now it's still a minority, but everybody uses it. And it's such a rich company now.
Well, you had said that, giving your content out freely and being very open about that has been very important. I mean, is that one of the things that you say has really helped you to be successful, or if you could put your finger on what has helped you in your success, what would it be?
Yeah, learning. I guess I'm not a great writer. I mean, I'm not going to win a Nobel Prize for my writing, but I can write clearly and simply, and I credit that, actually, even though I really criticize college a lot, and higher education and school in general. For me personally, because I wasted so much time in high school, I think that I learned how to write. I studied philosophy as an undergraduate, which was a great degree, because it was reading, writing, and arguing. And these are really great skills to have. So learning how to write well, and in this day and age, it doesn't mean books necessarily, but how to write, blog posts, how to write articles for the web. So they have to be shorter, but also good. And I'm not saying I'm the greatest writer by any means, but I reasonably well, I can write clearly in a short amount of space.
Right.
And I like to use a lot of visuals too.
Sure.
So I think that has really helped me. So I couldn't see it, back then when I was studying philosophy and writing so much. That, and then studying design on my own. For you, going back to when I knew you in the 90s, I was working at Sumitomo in personnel and training, had nothing to do with design. But I was buying the books all the time. I was going to conferences. I was reading, learning Photoshop, all the Adobe stuff.
Right.
And again, Apple products just made it so fun that kind of got me interested in it. And then I taught myself. I mean, my wife went to design school in California. She used to be a graphic designer. Now she's a marketing bucho. But I taught myself. And you can teach yourself anything. James Cameron, he went to the famous film school, right? No,
Sure.
He taught himself.
Taught himself. That's right.
I think he dropped out of community college freshman year or something. Right?
Exactly.
No college, taught himself. And he's James Cameron.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I still remember, conferences back in the mid '90s where, you were always very passionate about trying to help other people to just like design instructional materials and training materials in a way that was really going to be beneficial for education and learning. I always remember that still to this day, that it was and using the Mac. I mean, I still using the Mac and how you can actually present things better was something I always remember. Well, recently you mentioned to me that you've grown your career without advertising. So I think you've mentioned a little bit about this already, but tell us more about this, and what advice would you give others to do the same?
Yeah, so my marketing is to not do marketing, but branding, because if you have a strong brand, then you really don't, well, you don't need advertising. Advertising is what you do when you don't have an idea, or you have lots and lots of money, and most people don't. So by giving everything away, that grows the community. And in my case, I was lucky. I knew Guy Kawasaki early on, but I never asked him to repost one of my blog posts. But this is years ago, like 2005. He reposted something I wrote, and then Seth Godin mentioned something in one of his blog posts. And I didn't know Seth Godin at that time. We know each other now, but I didn't know him then. I just knew of his stuff, and he was like a rock star to me. But somehow he got word of one of my blog posts, read it, he posted it. That was a kind of a tipping point, because then you go from having 100 to 200 followers to getting some thousands, and then it builds up the list, and it just snowballs from there. But yeah, I spend zero on advertising, and I'll do conferences in London or Paris, and we use just social media.
Right.
We only need to sell 100 tickets usually for a seminar, and nothing. I tweet it, I put it on the blog sometimes, and it sells. It sells out.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't. I mean, Starbucks. They're a big company now, of course, but their story was too. They didn't have money for advertising, so they made the cafes. The space was kind of their. That's marketing.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I still think their advertising budget is very, very small.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably now they don't really need one.
I mean, Harley Davidson is another example. Yeah. I mean, their brand is what it's all about.
Right. Exactly. It sells. It pretty much sells itself, right?
Yeah.
So, well, what's coming up? What's coming up next in the world of Garr Reynolds? I mean, anything that you're working on that you can give us a sneak peek on?
Well, I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old son, so that I've changed my business cards to say "Dad" first.
Right.
So I don't, I'm not traveling as much internationally, and I'm very careful. So I'm going to Rome in a few weeks, and that will be it for the summer until London in November, just because I don't want to be away.
Sure.
So there'll be more work, more seminars, a lot of seminars, and mainly private ones with companies in Japan, because I don't have to go too far.
Right.
Yeah, and there's some books coming out. Yeah, so I'll just keep doing that, but whether there'll be iBooks, and still hard copy books, that's to be seen. I don't know.
Yes.
But people still read. And but the motivation isn't to make money. You don't ever write books because you want to make money, unless you're Stephen King. But if there's anyone interested in writing a book, I highly recommend it. It's not fun. It's miserable. Anyone will tell you I hate it. I love writing for the website. I love writing blog posts. They take a few days to do, but then you get immediate response.
Exactly.
Writing a book is a horrible experience, but if you do it well, whether it sells or not doesn't really matter. If it's most good books don't sell, but if it's a good book and you're proud of it, that becomes kind of your business card.
Sure. Yeah,
you're the guy. Dave Smith, the guy who wrote the book.
Yeah. Well, you're that published author, and it does really add to your credibility and your visibility. Whether you really make anything off of it is really not the point, but it's really that they're building that visibility too. Well, thanks, Garr. Really, really appreciate it. And for those of you who have not actually picked up one of Garr's books, definitely go ahead and do that, because you'll really learn a lot. I've enjoyed reading everything that Garr has written, both.
Oh, sorry, I'm not advertising. That's
both in his books as well
everywhere.
as his blog. So you're still active on presentationzen.com, or?
Well, the blogging must be updated. So my thing was, it has to be consistent. If you're once a month, fine. Usually once a week is sort of a minimum, a couple times a week. I told people this will be a little slow for a while because I have kids.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not for a lack of ideas. I got to get to it. But you have a young daughter, and
story. Yeah. But well, I mean, we look forward to seeing more of what comes out on the blog. So definitely visit Garr's site at presentationzen.com. As I mean, you're pretty active on your your GarReynolds.com site too, or
No, I mean, that's just a very static page,
okay, so really it's
garreynolds.com,
a
but it leads to the blog,
Presentation Zen.
presentationzen.com, and of course I'm on Facebook, and Twitter is Presentation Zen,
Great.
Posterous, everything. I'm trying Google Plus Hangout, the video conferencing. I highly recommend.
Yeah.
I'm still not getting Google Plus because I'm already on like everything.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know.
How do you balance all those things, right?
Yeah.
Well, definitely try to follow Garr and see what he's up to. And Garr, thanks so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing what's coming up next in the future for you.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, take care.
じゃあね、はい、さようなら。